Dennis Prager here. Thanks for listening to the Daily Dennis Prager Podcast. To hear the entire 3 hours of my radio show, commercial-free, every single day, become a member of Pragertopia. You'll also get access to 15 years' worth of archives, as well as the daily show prep. Subscribe at Pragertopia.com. Hello, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. I hope you had a good weekend. To my great luck, I did. Worked very hard, actually, this weekend. It was the Jewish New Year, which actually is the world's New Year. As I explained, the Jewish belief is that the world was created on New Year, not that it is just a New Year for the Jews. And I conducted services. I will be doing it again, Yom Kippur. If you're interested, whatever your religion or no religion, go to PragerHighHolidays.net, PragerHighHolidays.net. I explain everything that goes on. Basically stand for 4 hours. It's a long service, but I learned very early in my career that if you're interesting, it's never too long, and if you're boring, it's never too short. It's never short enough. Let's put it that way. That's what people want. They want to be interested. That is the key to all communication, by the way. I learned that when I was a kid, and I remember asking myself when I had a boring teacher, does he know he's boring? A very interesting question about people who are boring. Do they know it? And I suspect that the answer is no. Well, welcome to the show. I will be having the Superintendent of Education of the state of Oklahoma on. He has been the recipient of a massive amount of hate because he has opened Oklahoma schools to PragerU videos. PragerU videos are just simply wholesome. That's what they are. That's why the left hates them. And they hate them. There is no left-wing major medium, and there is no medium period that is mainstream, means all left, that has not accused us, for example, of defending slavery and of me being a white nationalist. Can you imagine that? A white nationalist. I knew that the struggle to do good in life would entail difficulties, but I will admit I never realized what headwinds one sails into when one wants to do good in life. The forces of destruction are so powerful apparently in the human being. People who actually think you are a hater if you don't think teenage girls should have their breasts removed if they say they're boys. You are a hater. They are lovers of these girls. We are the haters. And that is believed at the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and NPR. Do you realize that? If you went to college and you took courses in the humanities and not just STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, the odds are you believe that too. You believe that people who oppose girls having their breasts removed when they are a teenager, that these people are haters. Here, I'll give you the latest proof. Let's see, what is this? Microsoft Office has identified a potential security concern. You have to be kidding. Oh, my God. This is from Breitbart. BBC Radio scraps Irish singer. Sean, are you familiar with her? Roisin? No? R-O-I-S-I-N? Well, all right. Roisin Murphy, after she called out puberty-blocking drugs. The BBC has removed an Irish singer from a prepared feature radio broadcast following leftist backlash over her opposition to children being put on puberty-blocking drugs. That's really something. Roisin Murphy, an Irish singer-songwriter formerly of the pop duo Moloko, has become the latest figure of hate for the woke transgender movement after a private post on Facebook criticizing the radical practice of presenting hormone-altering drugs to children was leaked onto social media by a friend last month. Puberty blockers are effing absolutely desolate. Big Pharma laughing all the way to the bank, Murphy wrote. Little mixed-up kids are vulnerable and need to be protected. That is just true. Please don't call me a TERF. TERF is trans exclusionary radical feminist. You know, they destroy everything that they touch, the left. Everything. Did I say everything? Let me repeat it. Everything. From medicine to art to sports. They destroy everything. That's all they do. But there is one thing that they build. Vocabulary. I'm telling you, they're geniuses at terminology. A TERF is a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. In other words, you're a feminist, but you have problems with the idea that sex is not binary, or as they put it, gender. A distinction that they made up, incidentally. Please don't call me a TERF. Please keep using the word. Please don't keep using the word against women. She added in reference to that slur used by the woke left against women who oppose the trans movement. After her post was leaked, a wide backlash ensued, with the left-wing Guardian newspaper declaring that Murphy's latest release had been compromised, quote-unquote, for many fans over her views, adding that, quote, for many fans, particularly queer fans, this album is DOA, dead on arrival. Well, I don't understand. What does this have to do with being gay, which is the term I think queer is meant to mean gay here? By the way, I wish I had a recording at least 10 years ago. I asked why there was a T added to LGB. It has nothing to do with it. Why are gay groups aligned with people who deny that sex is binary? What does that have to do with being gay? The answer is nothing. Nothing. That means that the gay groups, as opposed to every individual gay, are as interested in tearing down the norms of society as the trans activists. That's what it means. Since there are quite a number of gays in my life, including on the board of directors of Prager, I know that this is not true for all gays, but it is true for the activists. Gay activism achieved its greatest single ends. The greatest single end was same-sex marriage, but it didn't stop them for a day of trying to undo civilizational norms, like the idea that you are born into a sex and you cannot leave it. You can pretend to leave it. You can do staggering amounts of surgical work on your body. You can take a new name. You can act a certain way, but you are not it. A white cannot become a black by acting such, or a black a white. It is fixed. Ironically, it is less fixed than sex. The Guardian went on to defend the usage of the often life-altering drugs without acknowledging the growing amount of evidence of physical harm caused, and that countries such as the UK have recently placed heavy restrictions on providing them to children. Then this week, BBC's Radio 6 scrapped a planned 5-hour set of Murphy's songs, concert recordings, and interviews, replacing her feature with rapper Little Sims. The BBC has claimed that the decision was not inspired by the controversy surrounding the Irish singer, but rather to promote upcoming spoken word and rap programming. Yeah, it's very hard to believe. Anyway, that was my living example here of what happens if you go against the grain on this subject. Cancel culture. There's no example of left being in power anywhere since the Russian Revolution and not engaging in cancel culture.
Gold dealers are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. What sets these companies apart, and whom can you really trust? This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion, my choice for buying precious metals. When you buy precious metals, it's imperative that you buy from a trustworthy and transparent dealer that protects your best interests. So many companies use gimmicks to take advantage of inexperienced gold and silver buyers. Be cautious of brokers offering free gold and silver, or brokers that want to sell you overpriced collectible coins, claiming they appreciate more than gold and silver. What about hidden commissions and huge markups? Nick Grovich and his team at AmFed always have your back. I trust this man. That's why I mention him by name. Nick's been in this industry over 42 years, and he's proud of providing transparency and fair pricing to build trusted relationships. If you're interested in buying or selling, call Nick Grovich and his team at AmFed Coin and Bullion, 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com.
You, my friend, a helping hand you lend in my time of need. Whenever I'm down.
The left is so vile and so sick. It is equally sick as vile. That is a big problem with the left. This is from the Telegraph in London. No meat, no dairy, and 3 outfits a year. Welcome to Sadiq Khan's plan for London. C40, a global group of city mayors chaired by Sadiq Khan, has a radical vision of net zero that critics say will restrict personal choice. Restrict personal choice. How about we'll be totalitarian and will destroy everything we cherish? Picture this scene. You have just made it through the door from work, although not by car because private vehicles no longer exist. You change out of your work clothes into something more comfortable, perhaps one of 3 new items of clothing you are allowed to buy every year. Then it's downstairs for dinner, since all this virtue is hungry work. But don't forget that meat and dairy are off the menu, so instead you might like to daydream about getting away from it all, only to remember that you used up your quota of 1 short-haul return flight every 3 years. You used it up last summer. This is the radical vision of net zero future dreamed up by C40, a global collective of city mayors chaired by Sadiq Khan, which advocates extreme measures to have, H-A-L-V, to have greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and limit global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Of course, what happens in England won't matter at all, basically. This is because these people only know how to destroy. He's another sick human being, this Sadiq Khan. But I blame people who voted for him. This notion that a handful of people are doing all the evil is not true. A handful of people are doing all the good. But it is not a handful of people that are doing all the evil. People vote for Gavin Newsom. People vote for London Breed. People vote for these district attorneys that let violent criminals out. These people are voted in. You are as morally responsible if you vote Democrat as all the damage being done. Oh, but Trump. That's it. That's the answer, Trump. But if there's no Trump, the answer is DeSantis. If there's no DeSantis, the answer is Ramaswamy or whatever the candidate will be. The mayor of London is no stranger to pushing the dial on climate change. His unrelenting expansion of the ULEZ ultra-low emission zone in August faced down major criticisms from affected businesses, disadvantaged citizens, and vigilante vandals. Kind of showing no sign of slowing down this week. Plans were unveiled to lower the speed limit to 20 miles per hour on a further 40 miles of roads in London. Since December 21, he has led C40, which is made up of the mayors of 96 cities from 6 different continents. It spends its time conducting research, holding conferences, and drawing up climate action plans. It was originally founded by then Labour Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, in 2005. Labour Mayor, okay. It merged the following year with similar bodies set up by former U.S. President Bill Clinton and its current board member president, Michael Bloomberg, the U.S. billionaire. Its website lists the British Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office as a major funder among several other governments, charities, and multinational companies. There it is. Cities would slash their emissions by 2030. Citizens' consumption habits were its central focus. Its more radical suggestions involved no less than, ready? Here we go. The abolition of private vehicles, the prohibition of meat and dairy consumption, the rationing of new items of clothing to 3 each per year, and the restriction of short-haul return flights to 1 every 3 years. Wow. I'm wondering, is there any Democrat in the United States who knows this? The desire to remain ignorant of the damage done by the left is universal among Democrats, or they wouldn't stay Democrats. They don't know this. And maybe they would accept it. Yeah, I won't drive. Yeah, I'll drop meat and dairy. Yeah, I'll buy 3 changes of clothing a year. I'll fly once in 3 years. What if your children live in let's say you're a Brit, and your children live in the United States, or your child? How do you visit? You can only do a short haul flight, and that's only once in 3 years. How do you visit? Will they allow ships to sail? And will that be the only way? If this doesn't unleash violence, then I would be surprised. I'm not advocating it, but it's hard to imagine that in America there are that many sheep. There might be. The lockdowns proved it. That there is no anger at teachers' unions on the part of most Americans, the most damaging institution of children outside of the gender dysphoria therapists and doctors in children's hospitals. It's amazing. The teachers got away with ruining children. They got away with it. I've always wondered about myself. What brings me greater joy? This is a purely emotional question. It's not rational. When the good are rewarded or the bad are punished. Talking about reward and punishment, major day coming up next Sunday night and Monday. Go to PragerHighHolidays.net and join me. Well, I talk about the outliers who are doing good. Here's an example of an organization. National organization designed to engage and educate Latinos on the issues of economic freedom and empowerment. And that is the Libre Initiative. The CEO is Jose Malaya. Libre is on the ground around the country educating Latinos about the economy. So here's my 64,000 peso question. I'm just being a little naughty. But seriously, I'm asked as a Jew all the time, why do Jews vote on the left? A perfectly legitimate question, since there is nothing in common between leftism and Judaism. So why do Latinos vote left when there's nothing in common between their aspirations and the Democratic Party?
That is a great question, Dennis, and I think we have the answer for you. So first of all, Latinos are incredibly different depending on what part of the country you're in, where they come from, when they got here, how they got here. So in some communities, we have Latinos that vote Republican and they vote conservative and they vote for free market values and so on. But in other communities, it's a couple of things. One of them is there are some very effective messaging organizations on the other side, right, on the left, with a progressive agenda or a more, anti-free market agenda that engage these communities right away. The minute that people arrive, these folks are talking to them. They're telling them that, hey, the American dream here is dead, and the only way you're going to get ahead is by relying on government, and we are here to help you get there by providing you all this assistance. Then there's organizations like ours, right? We're in the community, and we're engaging with communities across the country in 13 states, and we're telling them, hey, you came here for opportunity, you came here for freedom, you came here for a better life for your children. These are the policies that will give you that, supporting free market principles, fighting for more educational choice, better options in healthcare, whatever it is, and it resonates. It connects right away. So suddenly they realize, hey, I need to inform myself and I need to vote for leaders that support these policies. We're seeing the impact of that, and you're seeing it across the country. Obviously in Florida, not just in the Cuban American community, but in other communities that have come here, you're seeing that. In the Puerto Rican community in Orlando, you're seeing some of that because of the broken economic system in Puerto Rico, for example. And you're seeing it on the border, right, where people are realizing, hey, these policies are failing, these border security. There is no security at the border. Our communities are a mess, and we need to vote for people who are going to bring that to us. But so many things, Dennis, even energy, right? The war on energy that's taken place with this administration. It's incredible how they're completely tone deaf to the aspirations of the Latino community, and not just the energy cost, but the fact that these are high-paying jobs in communities where Latinos work in these sectors. And so we go to them and we explain to them, hey, these policies is what's hurting your ability to get ahead and to have all these great opportunities open up for you.
It's very hard to counter free things. Every conservative on this planet who runs for office has the almost insurmountable obstacle of not promising people as much as leftists do. And it's like asking addicts to deny themselves alcohol or drugs. So once they come here and they start getting things for free, you're going around and saying, oh, you don't want things for free. You want opportunity. Isn't that an uphill battle?
Here's the thing. Most of them, look, I've never in my life, in my entire life, I grew up here. I was born here. I've been in immigrant communities my whole life because I grew up in communities of people coming here from all over the world. I have never met someone that said, I came to the United States because I wanted public assistance. Not once. If you want that, go to Europe, right? It's easier to get to Spain, and in Spain, they'll give you public assistance immediately. 99% of the people I've engaged with have always said, I came here because I want my children to have a better life. I came here because I want to fight for the values of freedom, right? Especially if they come as exiles from places where freedom was taken away from them, or even in these countries where their economies are just so destroyed that they're looking for opportunity here in the United States. Now, we at the Leader Initiative are doing our part to educate people, and we're also trying to understand what they're thinking. I'll give you some examples real quick. We did a national survey of 1,000 people. We released it 2 weeks ago, and in that poll, we found that 79% of Latinos have a negative view about the economy. They're realizing that the economic story that's being told to them from the current administration, from the Biden administration, that things are great, the Bidenomics is working, they know that that's a lie. They have a pessimistic view of the job that the president is doing and the direction that the country is going in. And so that opens the window for someone to come in and say, here's a better option, here's a better way. And I think that's what we need to do. That was all right.
Hold it there. I want people. Where do we want to send people to learn what you're doing? BeLibre.org. BLIBRE. BeLibre.org. Back in a moment. Mike Lindell has a passion to help you get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop at the pillow. Mike also created the Giza Dream bed sheets. These sheets look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep, which is crucial for overall health. Mike found the world's best cotton called Giza. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's latest deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you'll receive 50% off the Giza Dream sheets, marking prices down as low as $29.98, depending on the size. Go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcasts square, and use the promo code Prager. There you'll find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and so much more. Call 800-761-6302 or go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Prager. Talking about the Hispanic community in the United States, if there is even such a thing. There is so much I want to ask my guest. It's really remarkable when you think about it. Jose Millet is the CEO of Libre, which means, of course, free, Libre. And you should go to Libre, Libre.org. Find out what they're doing. The left has so conquered everything that they even have me saying, I'm actually embarrassed that I said Hispanic community. I mean, what does, seriously, other than Spanish, what does someone from Cuba and someone from Argentina have in common?
Yeah, I mean, there's a shared language, obviously, but there is a shared set of cultural values, a shared set of principles when it comes to, you know, the role of the family in people's lives, how they perceive that family unit. And Latinos care a lot about family. I think that's the one thing that you would find that ties people together. And that's not uncommon. That's not just unique to the Latino community. That's unique in other places. But there are differences of the backgrounds that people have. Someone from Cuba probably came here a generation ago, came here as an exile, fleeing communism. Someone from Cuba coming today might be fleeing some form of oppression, but they're also looking for a better economic opportunity, right? So it's a very different. It's one term that defines a lot of people who have different backgrounds. And different
well, here's an interesting question. Is it Brazilian and Hispanic? They don't speak Spanish.
They're not. They're not. Technically, they wouldn't class it. So that's why the Latin term gets used too. The Latino community does include the Brazilian population. But look, I think at the end of the day for Libre, one of the main goals, going kind of to that point, is for people to understand what are the things that have made America exceptional, the real history of our country, right? The fact that this is a great country where you can come, doesn't matter where you were born, what your last name is, who your parents are. And if you work hard enough, you can get ahead in this country. You know, your kids can have a better opportunity than you had. And that makes us unique in the world, right? And I think that's what Libre is talking to the community about, those principles of human progress that they need to defend. People get it. And that's going back to what you were talking about a second ago. When you show them this, and we have these community events all across the country, we explain to them what we do, it immediately connects. Right? You don't have to convince them of something that feels right to them.
So I asked you why, in light of the values that you articulated, they still vote Democrat. So one thought I have is the dominance, and tell me if I'm wrong, I pray I'm wrong, of Telemundo and Univision as the media of the Spanish-speaking community.
Yeah, that is a big one, Dennis. I'm not going to lie to you there. The national news networks have been dominated by left organizations, messaging that's biased, and we are trying to change that. So what we're doing, instead of running away from that, we're engaging with Univision, saying, guys, you need to have a different voice. You need to bring balance to that station or that network at a national level. We are going to be running ads, for example, during the next presidential debate. Univision is a co-anchor with Fox Business. During the next Republican presidential debate,
Oh, you're breaking up. He broke up. He died. No, God forbid. His transmission died. Well, yeah. That's a first. I'm kidding. Go to BeLibre.org. BeLibre.org. BeLibre. It is amazing how they have taken over, just as they've taken over the New York Times, L.A. Times, Washington Post. So are we back, Jose? Is that the good news?
Back.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry about that. But we're going to fight on those networks for airtime.
Well, can you get on? Will somebody interview you on Univision?
They do, and there are some folks there that are open to the idea of balance and having objectivity, and so they do get us on to bring on our perspective. But it's not enough. We need to do more as an organization. We need to be everywhere. We need to be on radio. We need to be in digital media, and we need to invest in this market. Those are the only two options, but maybe even find a way to create a third option, right, or a second option that's a little bit more right of center in their point of view.
Does the average? I believe the answer is no. I'm telling you that. I hope I'm wrong again.
Yeah.
I don't believe. By the way, I don't think the average Caucasian or Anglo Democrat knows what is being done to kids in the name of trans rights. If Latinos knew that girls are having their breasts removed at the age of 18 and some at 16 because they say they're boys, and that the Democratic Party is unified in massive support of this, I think it would have a real impact on Latinos.
I think it has already, and we see that when we talk to people in the community. Even though we promote economic freedom and all these other issues, they want to talk about these things because they're scared, right? They're seeing this on the news. They're worried about how this is going to impact their children. And so we have had a lot of folks who come to our events and tell us, hey, what's going on with this? I want to learn more about it because they don't want that happening to their kids. And, Senator Cruz was with us last week, and he talked about this and anecdotally how in Texas he has seen a lot of Latino communities that maybe weren't engaged at all or maybe were voting the other way suddenly realize, hey, this is a violation of my right as a parent over my kids, and especially if it's happening in a school system, right? Parental rights are important. This stuff is super sensitive and very scary for these parents who, like you said, might not know about it, but the minute that they do, they want to get engaged and they want to understand how they can help, vote for the right folks who are going to keep their rights and honor, respect their.
You're doing great work. All right, so thank you, Jose. You want folks to go to BeLibre.org, correct?
Yeah, definitely check out the poll findings. One piece of optimistic news: the Republican candidate, if the election were held today, would receive 42% of the Latino vote. The Democratic candidate, 58%. That's only a 16-point
That's
gap.
Huge. Boy, do I like good news.
That's good news. In 2020, it was 65-32. That is a 16-point swing towards the Republican candidate.
Well, this has to worry the destructive party. That's what
absolutely.
The D
this does worry them.
Destructive.
Talking about these issues, we have to keep promoting this message.
You keep up the great work, my friend. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's why by the way, that you just learned in a nutshell why they shut us down. Why they tried to block even Robert George, the professor from Princeton. He was just screamed down at a university. As distinguished a conservative as exists in America. Hi, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend. Dennis Prager here. Here is truly a sign of our times. Remember, the left destroys everything it touches. So, of course, like the proverbial, is it the lobster that's boiled alive? The frog, yeah. And when it doesn't realize it's being boiled until too late. So here's another example of the boiling of the water by the left. Senate drops dress code enforcement as John Fetterman continues to work in shorts and sweats. So here's a good example of what I said earlier. The Democrats are destroying the country just as they did during the time of slavery, and just as they did during Jim Crow, just as they did when they established the Ku Klux Klan. The Democratic Party's record is generally one of injuring the United States of America, overwhelmingly. Not all. There were certainly some wonderful Democrats like Henry Jackson, the great senator from Washington. In some ways, but only in some ways, John Kennedy. John Kennedy is the one who allowed government workers to unionize, which began the long process of the destruction of public life, of public service in the United States. But when I grew up, Democrat was not as identified with destruction as it has been. So once again, I blame the voters of Pennsylvania for electing this man. He's not a good man, in my opinion, and I don't care. You don't like his opponent. I never vote on whether I like someone. I can't believe how childish that is. Oh, I don't like Trump. I don't give a damn if you like Trump. It is of no consequence. Do you like your oncologist? Does it matter? I asked this the whole time. Is that how you chose? If, God forbid, someone you love had cancer, did you choose your oncologist based on whether you liked the person? Choose your pilot based on likability? Should United Airlines choose it? By the way, they are going to begin choosing based on likability, if you're the right race or sex. 50% of flight school piloting under United Airlines will be reserved for women and people of color. Just how you want your pilots. By the way, do women and people of color want their pilots to be chosen based on that basis? Of course not. That's the irony. Senate drops the dress code enforcement as John Fetterman continues to work in shorts and sweats. Clothing matters, ladies and gentlemen. I have been talking about this all of my life. America was a better place when people went to baseball games nicely dressed. You will say, well, that overdid it. You didn't have to go in a suit and tie to a baseball game. I understand that. That is correct. But between the two excesses, the way people come on airplanes now, shorts and T-shirts, the civilization is composed of many things. One of them is the way people dress. Whenever they've adopted dress codes for students, grades improved and discipline improved. Kids behave better. Our clothing affects us, not just the society. It affects us. I've been wearing a I've not been wearing a suit. I've been wearing a shirt and tie all of my broadcast career. It's only very, very recent that talk radio is now televised. My wearing a tie precedes it by decades because I thought it was a way to honor my job and honor the people I work with. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has ordered the Senate dress code to stop being enforced. But the change only applies to senators and not working staff. Why would that be? Why would that be? As Senator John Fetterman continuously takes criticism for appearing in the U.S. Senate in shorts, T-shirts, and hooded sweatshirts, Schumer directed the Senate's Sergeant-at-Arms no longer to enforce a dress code for its members. Well, you should be proud of Fetterman. Of course, it doesn't matter. That's what a Democrat will say. What difference does it make, Dennis? It's the job a senator does, not whether they're wearing shorts and T-shirt. The blindness to what matters in society is remarkable. That's what was said about teachers. Let them wear shorts and T-shirt to class. So long as they teach well. Why does it matter for kids? My younger son went to a private Jewish school for a couple of years, for some years. And actually, it was a relatively good school. And the principal, I'll never forget, I liked her, a good woman, But she said, I'm sorry, Dennis, I really don't agree with you. I don't believe in a dress code for the kids. No dress code for the kids. Doesn't matter. As I've said, that there is very little wisdom on the left. Senators are able to choose what they wear on the Senate floor. I will continue to wear a suit, Schumer said, like it matters. Senators can now wear whatever they want. However, others entering the chamber must comply with the dress code. Coat/ties for men, business attire for women. Yeah. Generous interpretations of the Senate floor dress code can only stretch so far before you have to square up and make formal changes, a former Senate staffer said. Okay. So Fetterman and Schumer, congratulations. That's what we want, senators wearing shorts and T-shirts. Actually, it would be instructive because it would be almost only Democrats who wore shorts and T-shirts. It would be a physical illustration of what they represent, the shattering of norms. That is why, remember, in every leftist, there is a god. There are many gods. There are many false gods. One of the gods is change. They yell at the Republicans and conservatives to being against change. Well, that is true. We're against unnecessary change. They are for change's sake. We are only for change when it improves. But it's hard to improve on Shakespeare. It's hard to improve on Beethoven. It's hard to improve on the way kids were taught to read and do math. It's hard to improve. But they don't believe in improve. They believe in change. Well, listen, by the way, this is not just true of the Democrats. This is it's been fascinating to me how many Christians have called my show, a large, and I'm honored by it, Christian audience, who say it doesn't matter what you wear to church. God doesn't care. I mean, that's actually what vast numbers of Christians in America believe. They've been infected by liberalism in that way. It doesn't matter what you wear to church. So when you go to pray and you go with your fellow religionists, your co-religionists to church, you dress far less formally than you would for a wedding, or if you were one of the quote-unquote lucky ones and got invited to the Oscars. So doesn't it say that you value a wedding or the Oscar ceremony far more than God and the church? Why would you dress up for the Oscars but not for church? This is part of the egalitarianism of our time. I guess there's a certain inequality. It's like not all clothing are created equal, or not all clothing is created equal. Well, anyway, can't say John Fetterman didn't accomplish something. He did. Very funny call here from Helen in Philadelphia. She looks forward to seeing members of Congress in torn jeans. Well, thanks to the Democrats, the day may not be far away. That's correct. Yep. Do we have our guest on, gentlemen? Yes, no, maybe, no? Okay. Hopefully we will. He is the superintendent of schools in Oklahoma. Let's see here. Chicago and Ray. Hello, Ray.
Hi, Dennis. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to say you posed that question about sending your kid to school where they would vote a homecoming queen as a boy.
Right.
I would definitely not send my child there because if that school believes that science is real, and I say that with air quotes, but it doesn't apply to genders, yeah, no, that's not the message I'd want my child to be taken in where, a boy can be a homecoming queen. No, there's two genders and this whole woke ideology.
Do you have kids?
I do. I have a newborn, so I'm very worried about.
Yeah. What do you? Well, I am curious. Then, what are you planning to do with regard to school?
Private school is the way that I'm going to go.
Yeah, but most private schools are as awful as public schools.
I know, and I'm very worried. So I'm going to try to be as involved as I can with the curriculum and find out what they're teaching because I'd like to go the homeschooling route, but I don't even know where to begin with that. And like, I love all the videos you have on PragerU. It's very informative, very educational. So definitely going to have my child watch it when she's old enough.
Well, good. That's a good choice. The homeschool community has so many resources now to make it so much easier than it used to be to homeschool your child. And I appeal to grandparents to say to your child, if you have the funds, obviously, we'll make up the difference if there's any loss of income for you to homeschool your child. Okay, well, I have a man I've been really aching to speak to for a few weeks now. Ryan Walters is Superintendent of Education for the state of Oklahoma. He's been the driving force behind getting PragerU certified in his state. And he, to say the least, has been taking a lot of heat. Let me say to you, sir, we've never met, but I certainly hope we do one day. You and I may be the two most hated people in Oklahoma right now.
Well, Dennis, I will say though it's being hated by all the right people because what PragerU is going to do is allow our kids to understand our history, understand what makes America great, inspire them through the story of America, and so I'm very proud to have PragerU in all Oklahoma schools.
I have been following what's happening in Oklahoma avidly, and is there a newspaper in the state that has welcomed this?
No, sir, there hasn't. We have some conservative outlets that have been very helpful. I'm telling you, your most Oklahomans have been thrilled. We've gotten such a response from good conservative traditional teachers. Parents are so excited about these resources being in the classroom. So we've seen a lot of excitement from people, from just your average Oklahomans. But the media they have just tried to create this outrage and controversy. And I've pushed on them every time to say, guys, show me what's controversial about actually pushing back on woke indoctrination and actually letting kids hear directly from our founders with good context, introducing kids from early ages to some of these great Americans. But the corporate media, they absolutely hate it.
May I call you Ryan?
Absolutely.
I would love to come to Oklahoma and have a press conference and have all the haters of your decision confront me. Sir, is it true that you and your organization defend slavery? Sir, are you hate-filled? I mean, let them pose it at the devil himself, Prager of PragerU. But you know what? The odds are they wouldn't show up because they know that I will make them look like the liars and haters that they are. All we produce is wholesome, loving material. That's all we produce.
Well, and I can't thank you enough for the product because here's the other thing. We've been fighting in Oklahoma to get all these elements, teaching kids to hate our country, teaching kids that there's 27 genders when they're in their first grade. We've been fighting to get those things out, but here's been the problem.
Hold on. Tell us the problem in a moment. I have a hard break. I am honored to have Ryan Walters, the Superintendent of Education for the state of Oklahoma, on the line.
where the baby blues birds fly.
The superintendent of schools of Oklahoma is on the line with me, Ryan Walters. And I feel like I know you by now. You probably feel like you know me, because we're sort of conjoined at the hip. You know, I want you to, I know you wanted to make a point, please don't forget it, but I just wanted, this is something I wanted you to put in your arsenal, in your ammunition to respond. How much they fear 5 minutes of a video when they have their students all year long proves that they cannot handle an intellectual challenge. I just thought I would throw that at you. That's why they don't want even 5 minutes. That's why they don't want people like me at a university for 90 minutes. Because they know deep down we'll undo all of their propaganda in 90 minutes.
You know, that's exactly right. You know, what we've seen here is, you know, the left that is just, they know that if there's just an open forum for ideas, they're going to lose because we've got truth on our side. We have history on our side. And, you know, and of course, Dennis, I would love to have you in Oklahoma. You tell me the time, and I would love to be there. And you're going to have a lot of moms and dads in Oklahoma very excited to see you and very welcoming of the product that you've brought into their schools. And this is what I was kind of saying before the break about the core problem. The left is dead set on pushing this radical gender theory in our schools, critical race theory, all of this. But we've got to do more than stop it. The reality is we've got to be proactive. We've got to play offense. We have to get the culture back. And that starts with not just stopping the left, but actually proactively teaching our students about American exceptionalism, getting them to be thinkers, actually teaching from the founders the core principles that we built into this country. And then, frankly, it is, you know, I'm an old history teacher. By the way, I do feel like I know you because I was showing my classes PragerU videos years ago, and I've been showing my kids PragerU videos at night. And so I have been able to show my students, my own children, these videos that have inspired them to get them thinking about history, get them thinking about these incredible individuals throughout our history. And I've always, as a teacher and as a parent, try to encourage my kids to live up to that. You know, this is a country that is going to be the greatest country in the world as long as we continue to hold those principles dear. And your product is allowing our kids to have that conversation, to be exposed to that type of curriculum. And that's why they hate it so much, because it undermines their very ability to control our kids through an indoctrination in our schools.
They cite all the time one of our videos for kids of Leo and Layla, two kids who go back in the past through a time machine, and they meet figures who live like Christopher Columbus. And Christopher Columbus says to them, among other things, that, well, you know, slavery isn't that bad. Everybody does it. So I explained to my listeners, but I just want to tell you the inherent dishonesty of attacking us for it. If we had Columbus say, oh, that's a terrible thing, slavery, we would have been lying. He didn't think it was terrible. He was a man of the 15th century. So the irony is, if we had Columbus say, oh, slavery is awful, they would have said we're whitewashing Columbus. So it's the inherent dishonesty of the attacks. And by the way, when Leo and Layla say, well, we came from the future, and in fact they abolish it, he said, that's terrific. But they never quote that.
Yeah. Well, you know, because, again, the left is so dishonest with this. They don't want real history to be taught. They don't. They have their indoctrination and the way they want to put it in the classroom. And you're not going to win if you're doing history, appropriately with context. Again, that is how Columbus would respond, which is why you're trying to give your kids that context. And again, history is about learning from the heroes in history and being inspired by them. Is also understanding the context in which they live and understanding, like, you know, look, we're going to be honest with you about when people made mistakes and where that was in that context and why they believed what they believed. for students to have that kind of intellectual understanding. But the left, it doesn't matter. If you were to come out and have Columbus, denounce it, they would have hammered you for it. If you would have had him come out and say, hey, look, this is what I believe. What they want is everything pushed through their lens. What they want is and again, this is really the first time here in the last few years that we've actually seen conservatives take it to the left and actually play offense and say, look, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're actually going to teach our kids. Here's what we're going to actually stand up across. And I love this too, Dennis. All of your videos are available for parents. I keep telling parents, guys, that the media is trying to convince you these are terrible. I would suggest you go and watch them yourself. And we've been getting emails and phone calls to the agency going, we love these videos. What are the TV reports saying these are bad for? We've been watching them at home with our kids. So I love the transparency of it. But, parents have woken up to this nonsense from the media.
Well, you would know that better than I, and I'll tell you, I so admire your courage. You're one of these outliers, as I often tell my listeners, who make a difference in a society. So I am definitely, if your invitation, and I know you mean it, but if it's realistic, I am going to come to Oklahoma, and it would be a wonderful day or evening. With teachers, if they want to come, with parents who certainly would want to come, and with you. So we'll work that out.
I would love to do it. And like I said, you will get a warm reception. You will get to hear from so many parents and grandparents that are so excited that we're telling the real story of America.
Exactly. You know what they particularly mock? You know what is fascinating? Because I read all the hate. And it's from everywhere, from the New York Times, the LA Times, CNN, and of course the whole World's Daily Beast and Daily Kos and everybody. Rolling Stone. And do you know one of the videos they always mention that they hate? We have a video titled, How to Fold an American Flag. Isn't that fascinating that they hate that?
Tells you a lot about them, doesn't it? I mean, it is.
That's right.
It is truly an attack on our values. I mean, that's what it is. It's an attack on our values, our families, our faith. They don't want any mention of our rights being endowed by our Creator.
No.
They don't want any patriotism. Heaven forbid our kids be proud of our country.
That's right.
And so you are right over the target.
Bless you. Yes, bless you, Ryan Walton. Hi there, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I have a particular affection for the following guest. I've known him for quite a number of years, which is an achievement because he's not old enough to know that many years. But he's accomplished an immense amount at any age, let alone for his age. Will Witt, one of the most popular people who ever did a PragerU video, and he did dozens. And they're still legends. People still say to me, Will Witt, love the guy, as if he's still with PragerU, which in some ways in spirit he is. But he has moved on, and he is doing great, great work in Florida. And now he has a really important book. I'll tell you how important I think it is. I wrote the foreword to it. So, folks, I don't have a lot of extra time to do writing. When Will asked me, I was honored and I was happy to do it. The book is Do Not Comply. It comes out tomorrow. Do Not Comply. Taking Power Back from America's Corrupt Elite. Will Witt, congratulations. You told me you were just on Megyn Kelly. And I hope you're on everybody's show, to be honest.
I'm trying to be. I just got to call them all first, and then once they answer my call, I'll try and get on all of them.
Yes, as indeed you should. I was struck, I want my listeners to know this, by the amount of work you put into it. I'm an author. I know when people sort of talk into a recorder, and then and the book has come out with some, and then some of these are fine books. But then there are books that took an immense amount of research, which yours did. You back up everything you say with a source. That I assume it was hard work.
It was really hard work, and thank you, Dennis, for even having me on and writing the fore of the book. You know how much it means to me. I do spiritually feel like I'm still a PragerU because so much of what I put into this book and the research comes from things I learned while working for PragerU and things I learned from you. It's why you're such a mentor to me and why I wanted you to write this forward. But yes, this book did take a very long time, and it took a lot of really hard work and a lot of late nights where I was there having to, some nights I didn't even write anything because I was just researching, trying to make sure I got all the facts right about big pharma or the media or big tech or whatever it was. And as you know, at the end of the book, I get very personal and talk about things that I've never talked about before. And this took a long time to write and get it the way that I wanted to. But I feel like, you said you've known me for many years. I really feel like this is a culmination of everything that I've learned and everything I really wanted to put out over all these years that I've known you and have been working in this field.
You did. It's really magnificent. Again, folks, the book, Do Not Comply. It is, of course, you can get it straight from Amazon if there's still a bookstore in your area. I do wonder, though, Will, it is interesting, if there is a bookstore in people's areas, will they carry it? What do you think?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, any Barnes and Noble.
Oh, you do think that they won't?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, that's good. So I want to ask you an emotional question. In other words, a question directed to your emotions as much as to your intellect. When you write about the corrupt elite, do you get some sense of despair? Because I got to tell you, when I was your age, I did not think that America's elite was universally corrupt. So I always want to know, how old are you?
27.
Okay.
From a week ago. Yeah.
Happy birthday, belatedly.
Thank you.
So I am truly curious. How does it affect you, just as a human being, as an American human being, to know how corrupt you mentioned big pharma, the medical establishment? I mean, just to take two areas that people, the CIA, the FBI, the CDC, I mean, the media. So how does it affect you?
To me, it makes me quite cynical sometimes. I see the world at large, and I see so much sin, I see so much evil, I see so much corruption, and it makes me think, wow, are there really any good people out there who have my best interests at heart? And if there are any good people, are they in positions of power who can actually help me? Or are they just my friends and family, people who I know and work with? It makes me feel somewhat also apathetic towards a lot of the political world. It's why you read the book. The last half of the book is very, I guess you could say, religious and philosophical on the things that I think really matter. I didn't write it as just, here's another Republican book about why Biden sucks. I wrote it as what I would say evergreen book on how to save our humanity. You know, that's much more important, I feel, than getting the next Republican in office. And so when I see our elites being so corrupt in all of this, it really makes me think, okay, if the world around me is so corrupt and filled with these people who care nothing about me, what can I do in my own individual life to make myself the best person that I can be, especially the best person I can be in the eyes of God? And if I do that, then sometimes, you know, despite my body or mind being broken, what the elites do to me won't really matter, and I hope we can all have that kind of mindset.
So, how do you react to the onslaught of hatred directed to your terrific governor for allowing Florida schools to use PragerU materials? And I'll put it to you more specifically. Were you surprised at the avalanche of hate?
No, not surprised whatsoever. Of course, when you're fighting for the truth, you can never really be surprised that people hate you. I mean, Jesus said, they hated me first, so of course they'll hate you afterwards. Not that PragerU is, Jesus-centered in what they're doing, but the principles are the same, that if you are saying what is actually true, trying to actually do good for the world, help people, people are going to hate you. Because there are people in this world who want to see the world dominated by their power. They want to be the new gods of the world. They want to decide the morality that is subject over America. And if you have things like PragerU, like my new book, like Charlie Kirk and other people like that who are doing good work, and those are allowed to populate and be in people's minds, it's not going to be very beneficial for the elite that I talk about in my book. So, of course, we're going to get hatred for those things. But I'm incredibly proud of PragerU for getting their materials supplementary in Florida schools. That's a huge step in the right direction.
And now Oklahoma, and they're trying for Texas, as I'm sure you know.
And New Hampshire too.
And New Hampshire, that's right. Yes, good.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't keep track of the states, it's a very good sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Your governor is a man of real courage. He's not a charismatic individual like I care. So I always ask people, do you care if your oncologist is charismatic, or do you care if he or she can cure cancer? He knows there's a cancer in the country.
Well, it's kind of funny because that same argument, I remember you used that same argument with Trump.
That's right.
It was, do you care if Trump is, a mean guy, a jerk, but he can cure your cancer? And it was like the same argument that we used for Trump. Now with Trump, what we're seeing, especially for me personally, when it came to the vaccine stuff and now these latest comments on abortion, it seems like, hey, maybe he is not suitable for fixing that cancer that we talked about. And Ron DeSantis, maybe he doesn't have the most charisma. Maybe he's not the most likable guy, but, what are you going to do? Ulysses S. Grant wasn't the most likable guy, and he helped win battles for the Union and all this. It's the same type of deal. I care much more about the values and getting things done than the overall charisma.
It strikes me as childish to in any way be preoccupied with, is a candidate likable? Isn't the country infinitely more important than the likability of a candidate? By the way, I don't find him not likable at all, but I acknowledge, he doesn't have the same charisma as Donald Trump does, or even some other candidates. But who cares? What he has done, the courage there, and just appointing Joseph Ladapo as the Surgeon General of your state. So tell people about your work in Florida.
Yeah, so I am the editor-in-chief of a newspaper that I started here in Florida called the Florida Standard, where we talk about Florida local news, culture, politics, and then all the stuff that's going on with the election in 2024 as well. A lot of focus is, of course, on Ron DeSantis because I'm in Florida. That's what our newspaper does. But, in terms of what you were just talking about with Ron DeSantis and what matters, we've elevated politicians to a level of celebrity that I don't think we've really ever had since like ancient Rome and some of these emperors that we had. We've given them this power. We've given them this hubris. It's time for us to remember that these are public servants, not celebrities or anything like that. We pay their salaries through our taxes. They're essentially our employees. They should really start to remember that.
That's right. That's what should be remembered. How is the Florida Standard doing?
We're doing very well. It's been quite crazy. I was just able to hire on 2 new journalists, and we've kind of become a place of how would you say it, like not maybe canceled, but people in Florida journalism who'd never really had a place in the Tampa Bay Times or the Orlando Sentinel, Miami Herald, and so they come to us and say, hey, look, I'm a journalist and I love your guys' values, but none of the other ones will take me. Do you have a place for me? And we say, yes, we want the truth out there.
All right, folks, let me remind you all, this book is coming out tomorrow. It's very significant, and I wrote the foreword. Do Not Comply, Taking Power Back from America's Corrupt Elite. Will Witt, back in a moment. Will Witt is a terrific young man doing, if he were an old man, he'd be terrific, but he happens to be young. And he is, his book that is coming out tomorrow, Do Not Comply, Taking Power Back from America's Corrupt Elite. It is up at DennisPrager.com, or you can go straight to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you get a book. It doesn't matter, but it is an important book. Read the reviews. People have really gone overboard. And I've written the foreword to it. And believe me, I'm asked to write the foreword to a fair number of books. I just don't have the time. But I took the time for Will because of my affection and respect for Will Witt, but because the book is so important. So let's get into the book itself, Will. I'll ask a question you probably were not asked by any interviewer. And it's not a brag. It just occurs to me. It's not the sort of question people might think. Is there an elite institution that is not corrupt in America today?
That is a very good question. You're right. I haven't been asked that yet so far in my interview circuit. But I don't think so, because I think that humanity, I mean, we're naturally, just like you say, we're not naturally born good. And so we have to fight against that inherent not goodness, I suppose you could say, inside of ourselves to really do something great. And so you can have good people in all these institutions, like the teachers union is an institution that is incredibly corrupt and does lots of terrible work across this country. But I'm sure there are good people in the teachers union, and there are plenty of good teachers who do good work, but the institution overall has been corrupted by men and worldly values. And so I think that when you look at some of the hierarchies that we have developed here in America...
By men, you meant human beings. Because it's
yes,
mostly women.
Exactly. I should have just said women.
You're right.
Developed by women in this country have essentially been turned into, places where they can get away with sin and do all of these things.
Well, that's why my opening question to you was, how dispiriting is this to you as a young person to see this occur? I mean, 51 intelligence heads signed a letter 2 weeks before the 2020 election saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So the only question I have is not whether our intelligence agencies are corrupt, FBI, CIA, DIA, etc. It's when they wrote this, did they know they were lying? I don't have an answer to that. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, I have a thought. I think that it goes both ways. I think some of these people know they're lying, some don't. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer.
No, not at all. I think you're probably right.
Yeah, you look at some of these people, these young people nowadays who believe in something like communism, right? I talk ferociously about this in my new book. These young people believe in communism, and I feel bad for many of them because many of them don't really understand, but they go along with the evil anyway. But that means if they like communism, they know about it, that means there's probably a professor who knows exactly what he's doing, who's telling these students about communism for some sort of purpose, some sort of agenda. So I think it can be a mix of both. You have some people who are kind of just the people in the shadows who are pulling all the strings doing this, and then you have the sorry people who unfortunately get caught up in all of it.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here, and whatever you answer, I won't even consider if you don't have an answer that you're evading it. There may not be an answer, but I am curious. Do you believe there are Republicans who would take on the corrupt deep state?
In Congress right now? Is that what you're referring to?
No.
Or you just mean in general?
But I mean it three ways. Presidential candidate, in Congress, and in general.
I think Ron DeSantis actually would try and do the best job, and I think Trump would also do a good job if given the chance, because I think Trump would want people to think that he did a good job dismantling the deep state, if you understand what I'm saying. But in terms of anyone in Congress, maybe Thomas Massie is a good guy who would do something. But other than that, I can't really think of anyone who has that agenda in mind, who really wants to help. They care much more about getting viral on Twitter with videos of them talking how bad leftism is than actually doing something against that leftism. So again, I'm very cynical about most of our leaders, which I hate to be so cynical. I hate to see our leaders and think they're so terrible, but this is just what has kind of happened. And a lot of young people feel the way I do, I promise.
So this is a disturbing issue. Are there Republicans aware of the deep state? So there again, we have a few options. They're aware of it, but they're not fighters because the pushback would be so intense. They're naive and not aware of it. I guess those are your two biggest options. So, what is your take on that? What do you think? They are aware, but they're not fighters, or are they part of the system? Are they? And by the way, I'm not leading to that answer. I just want to know what you think.
I think they are part of the system. I think I wrote in my book, in the America's Political System chapter, I wrote about how politicians, if they want to play the game, they have to play the game. Anyone who doesn't play the game doesn't get to play. And so what I mean by that is that there are certain rules and standards that if you are a congressman, if you are a politician, rules that you have to play by. If you want to get funded for your campaign, you have to take a lot of money from a lot of organizations that probably aren't too good for the country. And at least they're doing it, if not just not bad for the country, they're doing it for their own selfish gains and essentially are just buying out our politicians for the most part. I wish the Republican Party really represented conservative values. I would get behind the RNC and the GOP 100% of the time and devote all my effort to defending this country through party politics. But because I do not see party politics with the Republican Party doing what I believe would actually make my life better, I find it very hard to get behind them and really support them.
Okay, so let's say you became emperor, not just president, emperor of the country. What would you do?
Sounds nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. If I became emperor of the country, I think that this might sound extreme to some people. Again, I write about this in the book. But if you read the Bible, God's law is perfect. If you believe in what is in the Bible, that means God's law is perfect. All of these things are in there. And so I would create a system of government as emperor that honors God's law, that says this is what God ordained on this earth, and how can we make it so that
All right, you'll give me some examples when we come back. I want to promote the book, if that's okay. I'm sure.
Yep.
Do not comply. It is up at DennisPrager.com and anywhere books are sold. Will Witt. Final segment with Will Witt, whose book comes out tomorrow, Do Not Comply. It's about the elite. I asked him if he were emperor what he would do. That was where we left. I did not expect your answer. So explain that. You would like to see, as it were, God's law reign in the republic. So does that mean a theocracy? Or does it mean that the legislature be guided by biblical principles, or what does it mean?
I think guided by biblical principles. I mean, I think that you can have laws and legislation that reflects God's law. I think that, for someone like me to come on and say this, I think shows just how anti-biblical the West has become. We've created this new technology. We've had all this science and medical innovation. We say, well, I guess God is forgotten. I guess God is not real. It's as Nietzsche said, God is dead and we have killed him. So you get rid of God in the West, and then you have leftism as a religion that people create. I just want to see us get back to a place like it's been in Europe for thousands of years, where God is put on a pedestal and said, listen, his law is perfect. How can we reflect that in how we legislate? I know Europe didn't have a perfect system, but I think we as Americans can do it better.
Well, one of the mottos of this country is there's e pluribus unum, for many one, liberty, and in God we trust. And it's been that way on our coins for most of our history. It's not exactly a radical idea. Obviously, you don't want religious tests for office and so on. You can't, I assume, because that's not allowable by our Constitution. But for example, folks, it's funny. I want to. You'll love this, Will. I want many people put out a bumper sticker with the quote from John. I would like to put out a bumper sticker with a verse from Deuteronomy. Then people will look it up and they'll go, "A man shall not wear women's clothing, and a woman shall not wear men's clothing." Mm-hmm. Nobody knows that it's even. I mean, there's a good example. You can't. I wouldn't arrest a drag queen, but I certainly wouldn't bring them to 5-year-olds or for 15-year-olds for that matter. They don't belong in schools. I mean, just to give an example, I reported earlier another male was voted homecoming queen at a Kansas City high school.
It's kind of strange that the male is not embarrassed for getting nominated queen. I mean, maybe that's just me thinking of how I would feel if I was nominated as homecoming queen. I would feel rather embarrassed, but I think we have this leftist culture that's so prevalent and so ingrained in people's minds that that's not even a concern to them. And I think that what you were talking about with, the Bible verse in Deuteronomy, not wearing other people's clothes, 20 years ago, you never heard the word transgender before. And now you can't go 10 seconds without seeing a transgender online or hearing the words about it or a debate politically about it. And there's a reason for this. It's because this is what the elites that I talk about in my book, this is what they want. They want to continue to take away all these things away from you. And it's that slippery slope at work again.
It does seem that they do revel in chaos, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, Will, you're doing great work, really are, in Florida, and I'm honored that I wrote the foreword that you asked me to. The book is Do Not Comply, folks. The subtitle is Taking Power Back from America's Corrupt Elite, and how sad. Well, don't get down, Will, really, don't get down, because...
I'm not, no.
Okay, good man.
Yeah.
And on a personal note, are you happy in Florida?
I'm very happy in Florida. I love it here. I miss LA sometimes, for sure, but I do love it here in Florida. It's a great place to be. I feel very free.
You are.
Yeah, I am.
There's a reason for that feeling.
Yeah,
no, exactly. Or California generally.
No.
That's exactly right. Well,
I love it here.
God bless you. We'll keep up the great work, and I hope the book is a major bestseller.
Hey, God bless you, Dennis. Thank you again for having me on and for writing the foreword. You're truly a mentor to me. It means a lot. Thank you.
That means a lot. Thank you, sir. Folks, one of the inspiring things you got to admit about my show is all the young people I have on who are doing great work, male and female. And if you realize what I do, that it's never been different. It is not the multitude of people who do good. It's certain number of individuals. Then you realize, there's nothing new under the sun, as King Solomon put it. I wish there was something new under the sun. I wish we could have a whole series of generations where reason and goodness prevailed. Dennis Prager here. Thanks for listening to the Daily Dennis Prager Podcast. To hear the entire 3 hours of my radio show, commercial-free, every single day, become a member of Pragertopia. You'll also get access to 15 years' worth of archives, as well as the daily show prep. Subscribe at pragertopia.com.